Hello, everybody. This is CJ Wiley with Adventures on the Road. My guest is Strong Arm John. How are you doing, Strong Arm?
Life couldn't be any better for my age. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like I should already be in the grave. All the things I've done and seen. I've done more things than most 10 men combined in my entire career.
Well, I've
And
told many stories about us and how big an influence you was on my life because I went out of high school with you and Doug Smith and went on the road and I've told several stories, but I think it's a lot better coming from you and me directly. So I want to start out just by how did you get involved in pool, man? I mean, you're an athlete, like a real athlete, like all-star basketball player, and but why pool? What happened?
well, as you well know, I'm in the Hall of Fame for softball. Myself have won 17 national championships playing softball. And our softball team back in the day before I even played pool, we were so young, no one owned a house and we were having team meetings throughout the winter because nobody had a house that could accommodate that big of a crowd. We were meeting at this pool room, and every time we'd go in there to have a meeting, I'd see the same good player in there beating the same five or six bad players every time I went in there. And I just couldn't believe what I was witnessing, that people are that naive and that, illiterate to the game of knowledge of how to make a game and match up and be a fair gamble. They were all playing the guy even.
Oh yeah,
And I thought, well, man, if this is that easy, this is for me. And I picked up a cue the next day and started playing.
is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And I started gambling $2 a game right the very next day, even though I'd never played pool in my life. I knew
It's
those guys sucked so bad, that I could hang with them, and not get hurt too bad betting $2 a game.
yeah.
So that's how I got started right there.
Did you ever see the movie like The Hustler or anything, or what was your only exposure to pool? Was that
Yeah,
place?
that's it. I never saw the movie Hustler at that point in my life. I was actually out of college, done playing college basketball at that point, and that's what I went to college on a scholarship for, was to play basketball. And I was out of college and done, and never, still into sports, regular sports, the sports that I played so much that I never even thought about pool, didn't know existed. I didn't know people gambled at it. I just thought it was a recreational thing that people did when they went out to have a drink or two, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So I didn't know anything about it, but I sure seen what gambling was all about right there in that pool room where we had the softball meetings.
that's awesome. Well, the first
Yeah,
time I remember seeing you was in Quincy, Illinois, at the place. It was called the Place, and you were with Doug, and you played my road partner, or excuse me, Doug played my road partner, Rick, like a race to 11 for I can't even remember 500 or something. And my partner got two shots the whole set. Doug put like an 8 and a 3 on him. Do you remember that?
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Is
And
that right?
Rick Thompson was there waiting forever to play somebody. Nobody'd get up and play him,
Yeah,
and then finally Doug offered to play, and Rick gets skunked in that set. Doesn't win a game, barely shot, like you said, two times. It was an amazing experience to
yeah. And
look
what was even stronger, I was like 16 years old, and so this other guy comes like kind of waddling up to him, and he said he wanted to play Doug after he witnessed what he did, and Doug turned around to him and said, "I'll take the 8 ball from you." And I was like,
at.
who is this guy? You mean this guy just ran a set out in 2 innings and he wants a handicap from this other guy? Well, this guy must like walk on water or something. That was Benny
Yeah,
Condon. Remember?
right. That was Benny Conway who did that. And Benny Conway at that time was actually not a shortstop. He was actually a champion.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't scared for Doug to play the guy even, but Doug, we actually knew who the guy was and played kind of dumb a little bit. And so Doug, because he was so young, Doug unknown, he thought he deserved to be able to get the 8, even though it was a 2 inning type deal, just
Yeah.
because he was not known at that time as, up there in you and Madlock's speed on the bar table.
Yeah. Doug was like one of the best unknown players in the country on a bar table at that time. And I didn't know.
Oh,
I didn't know anybody really at that time except Rick, and to me, he played really good. But then I started to see what levels there actually were, you know, and
yeah. Got an
so
education pretty quick. You did,
yeah.
and what the how the speed champions really play.
So then we kind of got. I remember standing outside. You had this long curly hair, and
Real
wore
long.
yes jeans. Man, you were styling, and it was. And I got your phone number, and you guys were like wanted me to get a hold of you, and then we started going on some road trips. And I remember we went over to Kansas City, and then went over to Topeka and down to in Wichita. That's one story that I've told. You remember Chester Burke's place when
Yes.
when they jarred you there? Or
Yeah.
do you
Squirt guns.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they got your biscuits and gravy. Remember they took you in the kitchen and said, "Man, try this biscuits and gravy. It's so good." I guess they knew you ate a lot because you're so big. And but they took I think you remember I remember you saying it seemed like they were like aiming at the biscuits and gravy. And they gave me a bite, and then you got in that game, and you were jarred, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, and you couldn't play very good, but you couldn't quit.
Exactly. And that's the nature of jar. I mean, that's why everybody had it back then, and they gave it to the opponents on a frequent basis. It's not like today's pool at all.
Doesn't it kind of surprise you that doesn't happen these days? I would think
Oh,
that.
oh, it surprises me to death. I can't believe it's not still going on more so than ever because there's more crime than ever. Why wouldn't there be more, chaos happening in the actual gamble of pool?
Yeah, and people aren't looking for it like we were. Like we would go into places and play big money matches and take our own cooler in and have our own drinks, and we wouldn't get anything from the bar if we were betting real high. And I always like we watched each other's drinks, and like if I went to the bathroom and I was drinking a beer or something, I would give it to like you to hold. Well, I went to the bathroom and came back, and you guys trained me to do that because we were always at our guard up for that, and it was still tough because they could squirt it in your bottle with a hypodermic needle from like halfway across the room. you know
Oh,
that.
I've had them, actually be able to get it in long neck bottles. Back then, that was so long ago, they still had long neck bottles of Coke, and
Yeah,
Pepsi. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And I've had them get it in those long necks with just the bottle sitting there and then shooting it with squirt guns and it
yeah,
go inside there, and get you like that.
yeah,
There, then you're stuck again. You can't quit and you can't win.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, I've had it done to me like three different times, and I remember in Memphis I was jarred, and I'm breaking the balls, and I feel like I'm breaking so good, and I'd get up and just miss the one ball. And my partner
Yeah.
came in, and he goes, "Man, CJ, how you doing?" I was playing a guy that really wasn't that good. I was like, "I'm like 11 games down." I said, "But I'm gonna run 5 racks in a row next time I shoot." So he watches me again, I'm just driving him into the rail. And I keep coming up to him and saying, "Man, don't worry about it. I'm gonna run 5 racks next time I shoot." That's all I could think about. I'm running five. I'm running five. And finally, he says, "CJ, you're not running 5 balls, let alone 5 racks. We got to get you out of here." And I finally, he got through to me, and I didn't want to quit. I mean, it puts you into a state where you just absolutely don't want to quit. But they got me
No.
out of there, and but it messed me up for a few days. But
Oh
I'm
yeah.
glad that's not happening these days.
Yeah, exactly. When's the last time you've heard of anybody happening to them? It's been years for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been a while. So yeah, then yeah, Oklahoma. That was where we met Ron Phoebus. We were down there. David Matlock was like the best bar table player in the country. And Doug, we were going to try to get Doug like the six ball on a bar table, and that Ron Phoebus backed him that owned that bar. And that's I'll never forget. He goes, let's gamble. I just gamble, 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 and you started picking up on that. And you took that routine for at least a couple of weeks. You might maybe longer, and you kind of acted like Ron Phoebus because he was a great hustler. and,
Oh
and
yeah, it made you feel like you were painting a picture that you were a stone sucker, just mimicking the guy.
Yeah.
That gave me a lot of knowledge about how to, just we were young then, and I didn't know the ropes of every hustle in the world at that point. And that guy had a great hustle. You know what I mean? Even though he wasn't a sucker, he painted a picture like he was a total sucker.
Yeah.
And if you remember correctly, CJ, that guy, he owned that bar. He staked Madlock himself,
Yeah.
and a roadman came in there to play Madlock with the six, and he knew the guy, and he'd never seen Doug hit a ball in his life. But if you remember correctly, he staked that game when Doug played the redheaded roadman that came in there. Phoebus staked the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The the guy was a great player, redheaded, stocky fella. Came in there to play Madlock with the six ball, and Phoebus said, "God damn, son, I know you're a hell of a player if you came in here to play Dave with the six. I'm just going to stake you in this game." And we got up there and played a game with a total stranger staking Doug that had never seen him hit a ball in his life.
Is
That
that
was
right?
awesome. Yeah, that was awesome.
I vaguely remember him playing somebody, but what
Yeah,
ended up happening in that game?
Doug ended up running out the whole set. Like they played 10 ahead, and it bounced back and forth. Doug was on two, on three, on two, on one, two, three. And then finally he got the break on three. He ran the whole set out and beat the guy.
That's what Doug, I mean,
That's what he did back then.
Doug was kind of a mental case, but you could always, kind of keep him managed. But Doug's liable to use three different sticks in one game, like one to bank one to cut one. But once he finally got that right combination, he'd switch shavs. But once he got it right, he'd run the set out. It was, he did that a lot.
Most eccentric guy I've ever met in pool, man. He
Yeah.
had a different stick for every type angle shot.
I remember we were up in Milwaukee and he was playing that Kevin Stenell, that 8-ball, and he had a table there. And I bet he had like 6 or 7 sticks out. And I mean, he'd go over and switch sticks and switch sticks and switch sticks. And finally he'd find the right one and he'd beat the guy. But it had to be just more mental, right?
Right. And if you remember correctly, that guy just 2 weeks prior to that beat Larry Hubbard even gambling in that joint.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
I knew he played really good. Kevin Stenell was his name, right?
Yeah, right. Kevin Stenell beat Larry Hubbard even gambling.
Yeah.
Even.
I knew because you had said that it was going to be a super tough game. And I mean, Doug knew it, but you also knew that if Doug could just get that right combination, he could
be making a hell of a score. And we made a hell of a score off that guy. We won a little over 5,000. And if you remember correctly, that was so long ago, 5,000 was like 25,000 now.
Yeah. How about Waukegan? You remember Waukegan, Illinois, when we were in there and Doug was there? We were going to try to play Boston Joey with an 8, and they matched up the game. You got the game matched up. Doug went out to get his stick, and he said, "I thought there was a party coming in, and it was police, and they were all lined up raiding the place. You remember that? And they came in and had us up against the wall, and they had all the guns on the bar." You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'm sorry. I remember a few details of these other stories that we just got finished talking about.
Yeah.
I can't even remember one.
You don't
thing.
remember that one? Okay.
I don't remember anything about any cops coming in. Anywhere.
They raided the place, had us up against the wall, and I had a fake ID. Remember, I had Mike Holtz. I was Chuck Bradley had got me that license. I used it for a long time, and they got that license and they took it from me, and they said, "Don't ever come back to Lake County," and they sent me out. And I went right across the street to another bar because you guys were still in there, and ordered a beer. And I was like,
right.
But anyway, God, I was surprised. I mean, I know you've been through thousands of these situations, but let's take it to Florida. You remember I was in South Carolina and I was so broke that I walked a mile to McDonald's and I was 3 cents short to get like a combination meal. And I talked them into giving it to me anyway, because I said I just walked a mile and they gave it to me, but I was dead broke. And you called me up like the next day. I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. My mother sent me a letter saying I should join the army, and I'm like, oh my God, my world's coming to an end. And you got a hold of me and said, man, there's a lot of action down here in Florida. And I said, I don't have any money, John. You said, that's all right. I'll bankroll it. And you flew me down there. And I know you remember that, right? And then we
Oh,
go,
remember every inch of that, like it
yeah,
was in.
tell us about that. That they still talk about this to this day. And this was, 30 some years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing, amazing, amazing hustle. Fans, here's what we did. I called CJ up to come down there. I already been down there about 2, 3 weeks myself, several $1,000s winner. And I went around to every single pool room and bar in southern Florida, in the Fort Lauderdale area, Hollywood, all that through down in there, West Palm Beach. And I had the line on everybody because I'd already been there so long. And there wasn't any cell phones at that time. So there was no way that if they didn't know you, that they were going to find out who you were as long as you didn't tell them where you were from. They couldn't. It was just damn near impossible, especially with CJ being as young as he is. No one knew who he was at that particular point in time. So here's how we laid this hustle down right here, which is one of the best hustle moves there's ever been in the history of pool. So I'm already in there. I'm halfway acquainted with all these guys, especially in one certain joint where the majority of the action and that was in Fort Lauderdale. So because I'm in with them and they know exactly how I play, when CJ got to town, we were not together. At least that's what they thought in that pool room. So I played CJ myself and we acted like we were gambling. And I beat him 2 or 3 times on 2 or 3 different occasions. And whenever I left, I said, hey, look, guys, this kid seems like a pretty good kid. This kid that I'm gambling with, we see that the kid can't play a lick hardly. Don't put the best players on this kid right out of the gate. You know what I mean? I tell them that. And and they don't, right? Did they not put they didn't put the best player on you, right?
No, I was able to work my way up the ladder.
Yeah, one step at a time. Right, right. Yeah, because what me and you did painted that false picture for them. That's the best thing you can do in pool is create a picture for people that they see in person, and whenever they see it, seeing is believing to them. It's just like a magician trick, you know. It happened, but is it real?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, after you,
All they know is it happened,
when
and
we
they
were
saw
laying it down, you beat me, and I'd go up to the bar. Now all the house detectives, we called them, would come up asking me questions like, "Where are you from? What are you doing?" And I acted like I was a drug dealer. I said, "Oh, I'm just down here on some business, and it's kind of like a hurry up and wait thing, and I can't wait to get back home because I'm going to buy my girlfriend a new Corvette." And I had all this money, and I flashed them the money, and then I'd leave. And I mean, they were like slavitating. They're like, "Oh my God, this kid, he's like got all this money, and he doesn't really play that good." And we're going to beat him out of his girlfriend's Corvette money. you know?
right, right.
So,
And if you remember correctly, you got to start out with just a medium range player, young
yeah,
kid, short. I think his name was Steve. I'm not sure. Young guy, short, really, really young, like 18, 19 years old. Played pretty good for his age, but there's no way that you would have been able to kick that game off for 300 a game back that long ago when that was like 1,000 a game today
yeah.
without us going through those fake
Oh
sessions of
no.
me and you playing.
And we
That
did it
trick,
2 days in a row. I mean, they were complete. And the second day, I did the same thing. I went put up the bar. Same guys came up, and I was still like, man, I don't know how long I'm going to have to be around here. Looks like it's going to be maybe another week. And but I can't wait to get back and buy my girlfriend that new Corvette. and I
right,
kept,
right,
and
right.
then you ended up telling them, what you did. And after that, all I remember is you had like an appointment schedule for me. I'd like go to this one pool room at like 2 o'clock, and you go, well, you'll probably take about 3 hours to beat this guy. So we'll schedule the next one at 6 over at this other pool room. And we went down the list and beat these people out of, I mean, about 30,000 in the next 3 weeks. And
Oh
it was,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was so valuable back then to know the lines of people already before you even get to the spot. And me
yeah,
getting there ahead of you that far in advance, man, that triggered one of the greatest hustles that we've ever been involved in together.
yeah,
At that point, and at this point in this podcast, I'd like you to bring up some conversation of what happened after we left there and we headed down into the Keys, and they told us that there's a guy down here. I
oh,
don't know why you want to play him because he's never been beat. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I've told that story on my ventures on the road from my perspective, and how we went down to Key Largo. We go into this bar, and then we go in like early in the afternoon, and we're asking, "Is there any gambling around there?" And they said, "Yeah," but I can't remember the guy's name, but it's like Billy Bob or whatever it was. And it's like, but you don't want to play Billy Bob because he's never been beat. And we looked at each other and we looked back at them and we went, "Never?" And they go, "No, no, nobody can beat Billy Bob." So so we were like, "Well, what time does Billy Bob come in?" And they said, "Man, he comes in at 8 o'clock just about every night." And we got back there. We got in there like at 7:30, and you remember, I think I played him for $10 a game, and I go over to you and I'm like, "How much are we betting on the side?" And you said like 640 a game. You bet everybody in the whole place because nobody'd ever beat Billy Bob.
Right, right. And I remember, if you remember correctly, we we called him Billy Bob, and I said, "Well, there's nobody named
His
Billy
name was
Bob."
Billy Bob, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God, I just guessed at
They
that.
called him Billy Bob,
I couldn't
and
remember.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
they
like,
called him Billy Bob. So your memory was accurate
wow.
there, saying that name. So I even told them as I went around and orchestrated the on the rail bets, 640 a game. I told them all. I said, I know this guy's never been beat, but there's no way my guy can lose to anybody named Billy Bob. I'm sorry, this ain't gonna happen. That made him. And one guy said, "Really, you want to double the bet?" You know what I mean? I was betting him 40. He initially wanted to bet 40 per game, and we ended up betting 80 right out of the gate whenever I said that.
Yeah,
That goaded him into raising the bet without me even asking him to raise. You know, the importance of this, every move we make matters so much. And it's so important that the moves that you make lead into your opponent asking you to raise the bet.
yeah,
And that move created that transaction. He
yeah,
raised the bet on
yeah.
me because I said the right things.
Yeah, it was such an education hanging out with you. There again, I'm 16, 17, 18, 19, and we're taking these trips. Every year we take, usually you had to go back and play softball or whatever you
Oh,
were doing. And
every
then,
summer.
yeah. And so you'd only play really in the winter time. So I would do whatever I did in the summer, and then we'd meet up again in the winter for a couple months. But what an education, because here I am having the opportunity to hang out with somebody that really is one of the greatest masterminds of pool hustling that's ever lived. And people ask me, they say, "Well, we've never seen him in the books or anything." I'm like, "Yeah, the greatest ones weren't put in the books," which I do think there should be a book made from your life. People tell me about that all the time, but it's just people love to hear it because it's never going to be like that again. With the cell
No, no,
phones
it
and
never will be. And to prove your point about the book and so forth, Sports Illustrated, I don't think I ever told you this, CJ, but
yeah,
Sports Illustrated contacted me and took me out to dinner. Asked me to go out to dinner. They had a proposition they wanted to offer me. You know, so I went out to dinner, met them for dinner up there where I live in Indiana, and they asked me to basically give them every hustle that I've ever done in my life and know all the best ones. And they wanted to pay me $5,000 for that much information to smarten up everybody in the country.
Sure.
And when they did that, that was like 12, 13 years ago. There was still some pool hustles left, for me
Oh
at that
yeah.
point. I was still young enough to play good, and I was still, on top of my mental process. Not like I'm terribly behind that in the mental process at this point in my life, but it was such an advantage to have such a mental edge on everybody.
Yeah.
That as well, more so than anybody. With the things that you're into with karate and golf and tennis and pool, it's all a mental. All those games are big mental. So we always had the advantage, almost CJ, everywhere we went back in the day, of having the mental edge on every place, every joint that we ever walked in.
Yeah. And the physical edge, I remember being down when we were down in Florida in Fort Lauderdale. Remember, we were staying above a gym because you were
Yeah,
lifting weights every day, and we stayed in a room above the gym. And you go down there and lift weights. You got me lifting weights, but I mean, I really developed a little too much too quick, and it was throwing off my pool game because my shoulders were developing too much, and so I laid off the weights as much as you did. But I always stayed in shape when you were, when I was around you. You were such a good influence, but physically and mentally, we definitely had a big edge on regular pool players.
yeah, yeah, we definitely did. I mean, they were mincemeat pie before before the game was even ever the balls were ever even broke. You
Yeah,
know, we just maneuvered into the best of it every single time that we ever matched up.
that's
And
right.
I want to give the American public an education that you really don't know about this guy here, CJ Wiley, about the level of his game, of where it really was compared to the finish of his tournament play. His gambling play was much higher resume of accomplishments than his tournament play. And here's what I've seen from this guy on two different occasions against two other world champions. Twice I've seen him play Jimmy Wetch, giving him the wild eight, which nobody in the country thought that could be done, basically, not by you at that point. Basically, everybody like Jimmy's side. I
Yeah,
called my good buddy Reed Pierce. He said, CJ's going to go broke. He keeps giving Wetch the eight. I said, no, he's not. And so you gave it to him. And here's what CJ did. And this ain't no lie. On a 9-foot table, 9-footer, tight, not real tight, but snug, not standard gold crown pockets, snugged up a hair, you know, 4.5 inch or standard gold crown. These were probably 4 1/4. And it was at Dan Toll's place in Kansas City, where a lot of action was spearheaded at that time in
yeah,
in the pool genre of things. So anyway, the first time he played Jimmy, Jimmy got on the hill playing 10 ahead. Less than 3 hours later, we're unscrewing and we got the money. CJ beat the guy. CJ made every ball that he didn't play safe on, that he shot at. And that includes every bank shot. Everything he banked at, he made. Every ball without fail, he made in a 19 ahead set, basically for him, because he came back from being stuck on the hill. Okay, so Reed and Jimmy talked and blah blah blah. Thought it was a fluke that you played that good. Jimmy came back and tried it again, and the same thing happened again. Except Jimmy didn't get to the hill this time, but CJ did the same thing. Never missed one ball that he tried to pocket. Okay, now here's the most fantastic story about CJ's game compared to like other American champions back in the day where he stood. And when you hear this story, you'll understand that he stood with the tallest and the best players in the world. Well, Johnny Archer was player of the decade of the 90s. Well, I had a pool room in Indianapolis called Sticks and Stones. A lot of action there. Johnny came through there. CJ happened to be in town. They played a 10 ahead set the first day on a bar table. CJ beats him. Johnny's done for the day, but he said he'd like to play again the next day. And Johnny grew up in Metter, Georgia, and they only had 4x8s there. I had 4x8s, 3.5x7s, and 4.5x9s. So we knew that he grew up on those 4x8s. So we didn't play him on the 4x8. That next day, we played him on a 4.5x9. CJ beats Johnny again, dead even, 10 ahead for the dough. Over, out. The next day, CJ plays him on a 4x8, the table he grew up on his whole life. CJ robs him again. The set takes less than 4 hours on a 4x8, on a 10 ahead set. So this fella here that's creating this new pool game that's about to happen with these rules, it's going to rule the world before it's over with. Just mark it down. Remember, you heard it here first. That's what's going to happen.
Thank you, John. No, go ahead. I was just going to, since you brought that up, I've told people, and you know how it's like been almost erased out of people's memories, which is just a strange thing, because when we were on the road, everybody played two foul, right? We called it.
Not one person played one foul or kick at the ball.
They would laugh at you. They say, we're not going to kick out our money. I mean, the gamblers they'd think you were, I mean, they'd literally make fun of you if you wanted to play one foul, like you were some kind of sissy or something, right?
Right. Like you weren't from planet Earth. You were an alien sent down here to mix things up and screw the pool world completely upside down. Nobody even knew how to play one foul. Nobody played it. Nobody gambled at it. We didn't even know the rules of it exactly back then.
It was a tournament game, and and we looked at the highest echelon in my eyes were the gamblers. The tournament players. There was Earl and Sigel and all those, Alan Hopkins, and they were great players. But there was a subculture that we were in that because they always talked about these unknown players that were really the best in the world. And, we were some of those players, and we knew the other ones like Vernon Elliott and, some of those unknown, called him the faceless man. And you knew all those guys. I know, John. Tell me a little bit about that, the playing that two foul. Like none of those players would play anything but that game. Just tell us why and the difference kind of in your mind as a professional gambler.
Because the strategy of the game, is so much more complicated. You really have to know what you're doing playing two foul versus getting lucky kicking at balls playing one foul. Two foul is a much more difficult game that takes a lot more skill to be highly efficient at. And the strategy is like chess compared to checkers, is basically what it is. Two fouls the chess game, one foul's the checker game.
Right.
So good players would never want to play let's kick at the ball or play one foul. They always want to play two foul, so they could not only torture you with their skill of ball pocketing, they could torture you mentally, because the skill and the knowledge of two foul is so much more dominant of an effect on the weaker player by the better player. So they wanted to just be able to control you completely. You know what I mean? Basically, the weaker player, So it's the best game to gamble at by far on the pool table. It's not even close. And with you resurrecting a game that's got a lot of those rules in it, it's gonna go off the chart. The only reason why they ever made up one foul is to speed tournament play up so that they don't take forever and the tournaments make more money because then their tables are open so they can sell them on time.
Yeah. And they put more luck into it so they get more participants because, if somebody's the better player playing the two foul game, they're going to win. Now, it may take 10 hours if it's real close. It may take 20 hours, but the cream will absolutely for sure rise to the top because it's such a strategic battle. Like I say, pool needs to be that battle between the two players for that first shot, and the entertainment value, the excitement value, and definitely that strategic value is so much higher. I've said many times I can write a book about that game, but about one foul, I can't hardly put together a chapter about that because there's just nothing to it. Even though the guys that played it good, Efren brought a lot to it with the kicking, but kicking is more of a billiard shot. It's not. Pocket billiards wasn't ever supposed to be a kicking game, right? Unless you're just kicking one that's hanging in the pocket, Like,
Right, exactly. It never was meant to be that. It was meant to be strategy and ball pocketing
yeah,
skills, not kick and get lucky or kick and get unlucky. It's all about skill. And
yeah,
that's what it should be: skill, 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 skill. Michael Jordan showed us that, right?
yeah,
Skill, 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 and then more skill. Let's
yeah. One
optimize.
thing, one thing that bothers me is like when there's balls that are tied up. A lot of times now they'll just make that ball get behind him and then just lock the guy up, freeze him up, put the ball down table. Now he's got to make a 2 rail Harrigan kick, and it's just silly to me. But
Oh,
we
yeah.
had to, like you do
Yeah.
that playing that game, you're going to lose because I'm going to break those balls out, and even if I just got a 50-50 chance of getting a shot, I got to do even a 20%. I got to try to break those balls out and run out because if not, I'm just wasting an inning. And if you waste innings against a top level player, you're not going to win. It's not possible, right?
Right. 1000% correct, CJ. 1000%.
So it's more exciting. You get to see the shot making and the
Oh,
two-way
yeah.
shots, and especially the three-way shots where you're making a shot, playing safe, and playing on the next ball at the same time. See, that's where the big knowledge is. And that's something you just don't see playing one foul, but maybe once or twice in a whole set, where it's really that, where they know what you're doing and you do it. So,
Exactly right. Exactly right, my friend. I couldn't agree with you more. You
yeah,
know,
it's, if somebody would have told me we were going to be where we're at now, where you're racking your own balls and they're making it like a trick shot where they make the corner ball. See, I was at this tournament yesterday, and Roberto Gomez is playing Feder Gorst, who already said on the Joe Rogan podcast the 9 ball was 80% the break. But Gomez racked the balls and broke and didn't make one. And I'm standing beside this guy, and I said, I bet you that the whole tournament he hasn't done that twice. Well, they took a break right then. And Gomez actually, I think, ended up winning that game somehow. But anyway, they took a break. Gomez is coming by us. I said, Roberto, come here. I said, how many times have you broke dry in this tournament? He said that was the first one. And he couldn't believe it. He acted like it jarred him that he didn't make one on the break. Well, they're making 2 or 3 balls every time. So how can they even call it 9 ball? It's more like every time they shoot, when they play the actual game, they're playing 6 or 7 ball. They
yeah.
rack them up with 9, but they make 1 or 2 or 3 balls every single time. So, I mean, John, as well as I do, when I got in those gears, I would put 20s on people if I was making a ball every time and playing shape on the one and all that. I mean,
Oh,
I was running lots of racks anyway, and I had my opponent trying to screw me on the rack, and they couldn't do it. So,
right. 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 Oh, I totally agree. Especially with today's technology of scientific information about this break.
yeah,
You hit them 50% of the speed that we used to hit them back in the day when you just let the big dog eat. Now it's
yeah,
a controlled shot, and it's only 50%. And it looks like a woman hit them.
yeah,
It looks like a woman cracks the balls, and yet they trickle right in the same pockets. The same balls keep going right in the same pockets when you're accurate with the cue ball and square the one up exactly the way you want to at the speed that you want. You know, and it's a shot that you have to master because it just ain't a hanger shot. You got to practice it before you got it down. But it's still ridiculous to even have that involved in the game. You
yeah.
know,
And
that's
then
why I
the
like.
jump cues. I mean, you can't see the jump cues took away the 2-way shot because another thing that takes a lot of knowledge is the 3-way shot where you're shooting a hard shot. you're playing shape on the next ball, but you're using another ball on the table as a blocker. Well, nowadays, if you do that, and even if you get like 3 inches and block them from that pocket, they get their little jump cue and jump over it and make it. And it's like, what? I mean, jumping balls with your full cue was okay. But I mean, there again, I don't think jumping should be allowed at all, really, because it just takes too much out of the game that's skill and knowledge, and what I'm trying to do with this new game, and I am doing, is bringing that back, where you bring back those 3-way shots to where that knowledge comes up, and you're strategically battling, because John, I think you'll testify to this. After playing somebody 2-foul for about 5 hours, a lot about them, like how they think, how much risk they'll do. You probably can tell them a lot about their life that they might not even know. You see what I'm saying?
For sure. You're digging into a man's character, right to the soul of his character playing 2-foul. And you're going to figure out everything about that guy in 5 hours, for sure.
Yeah.
You're going to figure out all of his characteristics of how he lives, exists, and how his mind thinks.
Yeah.
It's going to expose his knowledge.
Yeah.
1,000%. And you're going to know exactly how much edge you have in that game in a short period of time. And now you can figure out how you're going to strategically take this guy and beat him. You know what I mean? And hopefully you get such a good read on the guy that you know the exact speed to play to beat him and not show everything that you have while you're doing it. That's why 2 fouls are so much better. You just make so much more money.
You can stall.
Yeah, you can stall for a long time.
See, the gambling, people, have mixed feelings, and I understand that, but hey, it's just like poker got really big. And if somebody looks down at a poker player for bluffing, then they shouldn't even be watching it, because that's part of the game, is bluffing and mentally manipulating your opponent. And like I said, playing 1 foul, you can't do that. But playing 2 foul, like I can I've been in somebody's head so much that I can push out a shot that I don't want to shoot, but I can make a little signal to him and he'll pick up on it and he'll shoot that shot because he's scared that I know something that he doesn't. And he's scared to let me do it because, you're catching him with his pants down. If you roll out a shot and some kind of trick shot and make it, man, a guy feels like, you like slapped him or something. You know what I mean?
Right. He totally falls apart. When he has to shoot, he feels like, man, I don't know nothing about this shot, but I can't let CJ shoot, period. I can't even let him get back through the table at all, no matter where he pushes out, unless he pushes out to where he's hooked.
Yeah.
That's it. I got to shoot. You catch real suckers like that, they're shooting at everything that ain't hooked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything.
Yeah, because they get that pride, and it is, and that's what's so beautiful about pool is, to bring out that ego. I mean, the competitive spirit is something that I just think is missing these days. I've just been to 2 tournaments and I'm watching these guys play. It looks like they're practicing against each other. They rack their own balls, they break, they run out, or they don't run out. And then the other guy sits there but you can't tell anything about each other doing that. What we're talking about now does not exist when Feder Gorst plays Roberto Gomez, like I just saw down in New Iberia. They're just, whoever breaks and racks the best wins. But there's none of this psychological stuff at all.
Yeah. That's terrible when those 2 factors determine the winner. That's it. Instead of, racking. Racking is part of the game. Back in the day when we were out there, everybody racked for each other with regular racks. And you could manipulate the rack to slow them down some if you knew what you were doing. Well, that's part of the game. You're not cheating. That's part of this game.
It's just like a pitcher trying to throw a curveball or a slider because he knows that batter, I mean, he's trying to win. But if you were pitching to yourself, you just throw it right down the pipe and hit the ball over the fence. I mean, it's just like, I mean, that's what they're doing. It has saddened me, and that's what's inspired me for the last 5 years to put this together, because this game that I've come up with, I basically put it into a formula to eliminate all the weaknesses that I had identified and bring in all the strengths in pool, so that you maximize the strategic value, the entertainment value, and that battling for that shot and that psychological part. And if somebody beats you at it, you'll know what you need to go and practice, and that's what you do. Like, I've been beat before, and I'll go and I'll practice maybe one particular part of my game and come back and beat the guy, because and that's healthy for the whole game, and you don't see that these days. Kind of, it's almost designed where nobody has a big incentive to get that much better, unless they're just total professional players. But it should be like that for the lower level players too, because that game was more fun for them as well. You didn't have to be a player like my speed to enjoy that game. I think it was even better for lesser
Way
players.
more fun, and they're gonna stay at the table way longer. Why?
Yeah.
Because now they're not froze up on a ball by you as an opponent, dead froze when you played that safe, and they got nowhere to go. When you're playing two foul, they feel like they got somewhere to go every time they come to the table.
Yeah.
It's not just they're in a trap and they got to get lucky. No, they can push somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a great option for the weaker player to lose more money in this game than the one foul.
Yeah.
No question.
And it feeds the economy of the gambling, at the lower levels, and it pushes it up. And there again, the hustling part isn't ever going to come back. I just saw on Facebook somebody sent out a picture of somebody down there, gambling with them, and he sends out a picture and he asks everybody on the internet, "Who is this guy?" Well, he gets like 50 replies, and
in 2 minutes.
yeah. And you see, back in our day, if that, that's called knocking somebody. And if somebody was a knocker like that, man, the smart guys would figure out a way to get them out of the pool room. Sometimes they would they do some bad things to them once in a while, but that was just looked down on. Now it's like encouraged. Like, they feel like they're really smart when they knock somebody.
Hey,
And
back in the day, CJ, back in the day, the old saying really pertained.
Yeah.
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're doing something illegal or playing pool. It's that same thing. You go in there and you know a guy, and you're the only person that knows that guy, and he's from out of state, and you get to yak in your trap and telling everybody exactly how he plays. That guy's catching a lot of heat.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be really bad physical, but he's going to catch a lot of verbal abuse in the best case scenario. He's still going to catch
And
a
he's
lot.
going to be blackballed, where people won't want to gamble with him. If he's the house detective and he knocks people, it's just and again, it's kind of a microcosm of what I see happening to the whole country. It seems like everybody's just weak compared to how they were back in the 80s, 70s. Men were men, and now, we don't have to get into that, but it just seems like that's taken down the whole masculine spirit, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about hustling people and cheating them and anything like that. We're just talking about men being men and gambling against each other. And hey, may the best man win. That's what competition's supposed to be, I think, in sports in general, like in high school, is to teach you about life. So when you go out, because life isn't easy, and if nobody, everybody gets a trophy, that's really not how life is. So this type of upbringing for me, and I give you a lot of credit for has helped me in my life. I've been really successful in several different businesses. And a lot of it was because I learned how to be a man by gambling, playing pool. I say the game is the teacher, and there's a deep meaning to that. And I'm sharing some of it with you now. So.
Oh yeah, I've always believed in your mental process, man. And that's been since you were 17 years old. When we first went on the road, CJ was 17. I went with him to his high school when he
Yeah.
quit high school, and they still had to give him valedictorian honors. He was that smart. And on top of that, he was a scratch golfer. He was the number one man on his high school tennis team, and he played basketball in high school. This guy's a well-rounded athlete. He ain't no regular pool player that only can do one thing in life. He's not that. This is C.J. Wiley, a mastermind of a lot of different things.
I appreciate that, man. I've always, given you accolades because, you were such a strong influence. And I had Omaha John on a couple weeks ago, and he's the same way. And, and I was lucky enough that I played the level where I could get the best people to travel with me because, it was a business. You wouldn't want me with you if I wasn't making money, and I wouldn't blame you. So I got kind of the, Weldon Rogers. I mean, these guys. They're
I know every one of
they
them.
are the best hustlers that ever lived. Dalton Leone and some of those guys.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're in my category for sure.
Yeah,
I'm.
you all had different styles. I mean, one
Oh
thing
yeah.
those guys, yeah, you were all different. But one thing about you is you were aggressive. Like you could go in places where they'd never play more than five a game, and win like 1,000. And it was like or 2,000, and get them betting way over their comfort zone. And I still don't know. It was just magical. You just talk them into doing it. It's amazing what you're just natural at that, though, huh, John?
Well, it's part of God's gift, man, that He gave me, the gift of gab, you
Yeah,
know, and it just translates into pool very easily for me because I have so much knowledge stored up in my brain about the game that I just don't make a mistake when I'm talking to somebody. I'm never going to say a wrong sentence that makes that game not happen. I'm always going to be the guy saying the right thing that makes that game happen, you
yeah,
know? So that's where my best attribute is of pool hustling is my gift God gave me to be able to talk in any situation as long as I have the knowledge that pertains to that situation.
yeah, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
John's a happily married man, but I have to say, we won't get into this too much. I don't want to. But I was a kid. You got to understand, and I'm
Hey,
getting,
My wife's right in there by you, CJ.
yeah,
She'll understand this, and it won't bother her a bit if you bring this up.
okay, yeah. I because as a kid, I'm looking at John like a big. He's always been like a big brother to me, and a good influence. Well, we all are trying to attract beautiful women, and John also has that gift, and this is the most amazing thing. I don't know how many times it happened where John would say, to take him somewhere, and he would go in and he could talk pretty much any any woman into leaving with him, and
Well,
that's
not
a
people that were with their husbands,
uh,
not women that were with their husbands in that
no, 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 no.
particular joint. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no, no, single women, no. If he would have brought out, I would have thought that was a little strange. But I'm just giving you accolades again. It was like as a young man, you taught me some things there because you gave me some strategies and stuff. But I was never at the level that you were, and I just always admired that because I would go, man, how did you do that? Because he's getting really attractive women and just I was just amazed. So, but anyway,
it's all a part of that gift of gabs. It's still there too. I
yeah,
had a little bit of knowledge about women.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Pretty good stuff, man.
yeah. We won't give out those secrets.
Right.
I got them inside my head, but I don't share that stuff. But again, I never executed it like that. And the problem with back to the pool hustling and gambling is it was just really hard for me to make my own games. And John would just say, go over there away from here, let me match up the games, and don't even look at them. Just go over there and mind your own business a little bit, and over in the corner, and he would talk people into playing me. But if I went up there and tried to do it, I
You
made
had
them.
leprosy. You had leprosy when you went up there. They
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
you had leprosy.
They could feel and I've told my friend Casey in here that I spent half my life becoming one of the most intimidating pool players in the world, and the other half of my life trying to undo it, because I had this energy. I made people uncomfortable. I mean, I've been around some really tough, criminal underworld element people that told me, they said, "Man, you even make me feel a little uneasy." But I had so much killer instinct, that I had developed from playing this game. And back then I was scared deep down that if I lost, I mean, what am I going to do? Where am I going to sleep? What am I going to, and so I was always in that situation where I had to win. And in the game of pool, you can't cheat or anything. You can't be like a card cheat. I had to do it in front of everybody, and I had to do it honestly, even though there was some hustling involved. But I made most of my money giving up big handicaps and outrunning them. John's made me give up handicaps to people that I really didn't think I could win at. But if he told me I could win, I believed him, and I did. And I won pretty much every time. I mean, couple exceptions, but it took
Well,
it took somebody pretty strong. Huh?
everybody's got a couple blemishes on their resume, man.
Yeah,
So I mean, you're going to lose at this game. There's no way to stop it. I don't care if I match up every game that you play from 17 to 90.
yeah.
Even if you have the best of it, it's still gambling.
Oh
You're
yeah,
you're going to lose, and there's no way to stop from happening. So it's just the percentage of wins versus losses that matter. You
yeah,
know, and if you're like basically 95-5, which is pretty accurate for our track records when we did business together.
yeah,
If you're like 95-5, who gives one care about 5 losses?
yeah,
Nobody. They don't even remember him, but they damn sure remember this guy wins every time he plays.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Were
The
you in
people.
Chicago when I played Bustamante? I can't
No,
remember that.
I wasn't
You
there.
you weren't there. Yeah, you
No,
were there. I gave that Sergio the 8 on a bar table in Shreveport. That was one of my losses, I think, with you.
right.
But I mean that he was the best one-handed player in the
Country
country.
better than
And
anybody. He robbed Weldon. He
huh?
robbed. He
Yeah,
robbed Weldon when he played him. Even
this guy could beat, like, at APA 7. He could beat him one-handed, jacked up. Right? He played
oh,
about
1,000%.
yeah,
Remember, if you remember correctly, I gave him the last 3, and I played two-handed. We played
yeah,
26 hours, and we were dead even for
yeah,
300 a game.
yeah. It was unbelievable how good this guy played. And then I gave him the wild 8, and he played two-handed. And he
You're
obviously played better two-handed, but yeah, I couldn't beat him like that. But we were playing on kind of a gaffy bar table, and it was a strip club there in Shreveport. You remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, I remember like it
I
was
ended
yesterday.
up with I ended up with their bartender. I think I moved her to Dallas for a little while.
Is that right? Yeah, I don't doubt it a bit. You've had some real lookers in your lifetime. No question about it. We've been fortunate, man. We've lived a hell
Yeah,
of a life.
yeah,
To be able to hang your hat anywhere you want in the country and call it home. Who gets to do that in this lifetime? Think
yeah,
about the
exactly.
people that would love to be able to trade their life for what we've done. You
Yeah,
know, even though we were gone from home so much. People, just like NBA players, we were just in that kind of lifestyle basically. Where we had to stay gone continually to be successful, to be that guy that outran the whole pool life and the toughness of outrunning the nut, and all the expenses and
yeah,
still stackpiling money taller and taller in your pocket.
yeah,
We were able to do that, you know, at that point in time. And, so many road players have to go home and call it quits to ever do it again.
yeah. There's
Because
only
they
a
can't they
handful
can't do that. They can't stockpile the bankroll.
yeah,
They're just not smart enough to do it. They play good enough, but they just can't put it together in the intelligence level.
Yeah. Well, that's how I got into my first, that CJ's Billiard Palace. I was at a post office getting ready. I was sending an entry fee into a tournament, and I was just at the last minute, and this guy was in the post office, and I could kind of feel him behind, like looking at me or something. And so he calls out to me. He goes, "CJ, are you CJ?" He said. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I thought so. I've seen you play pool before." And we got to talking, and he was out trying to find another partner. He said they were opening up a pool room, and one of their partners dropped out, and they was looking for another one. And I was like, "Well, tell me a little bit more about this pool room." So he did, and then we agreed to meet the next day. Well, I ended up giving him 10,000 because I had stacked up a lot of money. So I gave him 10,000, and I became a partner. And all I did was play pool there. And well, they started mismanaging the place, and then they needed more money. So I gave them another 10, and they gave me some stock, more stock in the company. Then they went, mismanaged it again. I gave them another 10. They gave me more stock. So by the time the smoke cleared, they had some tax liability, and I took over some of their assets and some of their liabilities. And that's how I got CJ's Billiard Palace. And I ended up clearing $4 million in the next probably 15 years. I had it for 17 years, but that was all because I had been with you and a few other players, and I was able to stack up a large sum of money. And I knew that money itself wasn't going to get me anything. I had to get into a business, and that's what you did, John. You own a Central Paving in Indianapolis, right? How long have
Correct.
you had that business?
Since 95,
Wow, 28 years. Yeah.
28 years, man.
And
28 years.
yeah, you've done
You
a
know,
great job. That's been real successful for you.
oh, it's been great, man. It's been great. And it's fortunate that my pool game never dropped off in all those working years until the last couple of years. I finally just got so old that things are going wrong and so forth that my pool game's not what it used to be. But I can still play a little bit. I'm not totally helpless, but you know, that's part of life, man. It's going to happen to everybody. Period. There's no way
Well,
around.
yeah, we were
Father,
joking about this
Father
earlier.
Time's undefeated.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I heard you saying that 30 years ago. But the fact is, when John goes into just about any room, he's still got a better body. He's better built than everybody. And, he's, up there, quite a bit up there, actually, and looks like he's still like a 26-year-old, like, stud athlete. I mean, it really is unbelievable. But I saw how much work you did and how dedicated. This man worked out every day. If he missed a day, he was like a heroin addict that missed. He was like he had to go to the gym. I'd have to take him to the gym, like at like uncomfortable times. Sometimes he'd look for like a 24-hour gym and go there like 2 in the morning. It's like
I did do that a lot over the years out there. I sure did.
amazing.
Yeah,
But
I
what a
sure did.
what a good example for everybody, because and your diet, I mean, you were you always ate really really well. I think that even got better. You said you were like really scientifically putting together your having them put together your meals. You still do that, or is it?
Yeah, I do it way worse than did back in the day when we were running around. Like I buy these macro measured meals from bodybuilder champions, you
Yeah,
know, and keep them and stack them up and have 50 in my freezer at any particular time, you know. And so I've dove into, how I am. I'm a OCD guy. CJ,
yeah,
whatever I'm into 1,000%.
yeah,
That's the things that I actually do in life. I'm so knowledgeable because I give it everything that I have it
yeah,
to those things. Now, there's a lot of things that I wish I was a lot better at, like computers and phones and stuff like that I never got into. But if I did, I would be successful at it because I'm all in on anything that I do as long as I'm really my mind is set. I got to master this. I got to master it. I got to master it. So Uh,
That's a great attribute, and that's also, I mean, that's something that I do too, and
oh yeah, you
it
can do
is.
so many things so well. Your mindset is the closest one to mine of anybody that I've ever traveled with. It's awesome. You
That's
have
cool.
you've had a hell of a life, brother.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. Well, John, man, this has been great.
Oh, it has.
Reminiscing.
This went
It's been
on
a
way
while.
longer than I anticipated. But you know
Yeah.
how it is, man. Longtime road partners from 30 years ago that went on the road together off and on for years. We could sit here and talk like this for another 10 hours if we wanted to. There's a hell of a lot more pool stories to be told. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We just, we've been talking long enough. We run over any farther than this, we're probably boring people.
that's right. Well, I think people are going to get a lot out of this because
Oh, I do too.
speaking from the heart, and this is real experiences. We don't have to sugarcoat anything. If anything, we tone it down. So,
Exactly. This
but
isn't full
anyway,
of the
man,
whole recipe. You know what I
yeah, that's
mean?
right.
We're still conservative Joe on passing out free knowledge a little
Yeah.
bit, you know?
But we both know the game is the teacher. So here in a couple months, maybe we'll sit down again. If it's the timing's right for both of us, and reminisce a little bit more. And
Oh, yeah. I'd
again,
love it.
thanks, John. I appreciate you coming on and being my guest tonight.
Oh, no problem, man. Let's do it again.
All
You got
right.
to have a podcast for softball like this, and it changes every week. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what, yeah, that's what you should do too, because this game that you're inventing is going to be so popular, it's going to demand something like that. It'll
Yeah.
make that game. If you do a podcast every week with some other, you know, influenced big pool time type person,
Yeah.
you're just gonna make that game more popular and
Yeah.
it's gonna help make it people want to have tournaments of that game by
Oh yeah.
running these podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to do a lot. We're going to revolution. We don't say that. We're going to refine everything, including how the game is produced and shown, because we want to get it back on, a major TV station. And with this game, I'm positive. I've done it before. I've put a lot of TV shows together, and that's what pool needs. And still do the streaming stuff, but let the TV be the engine driving the train. And then still do these podcasts and a lot of streaming. We can do that on a daily basis all over the country, where people can watch it and enjoy it, and maybe even bet a tip or two. But anyway, till next time, this is CJ Wiley, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Strong
Big
arm
John.
John checking out, brothers. Love to see you.
All right.